So, in terms of our topic, first of all, everyone here gets schar lichas yishakach, cold rainy day. In terms of our topic today, I saw an interesting article this week about Rav Neuwirth, the author of one of the classic Sfarim, the Shmir Shabbos K'Hilchasa, the Shmir Shabbat K'Hilchata, which is one of the classic Sfarim in terms of modern halachic Sfarim, and it's a beautiful story in terms of what motivated Rav Neuwirth to write this sefer. He says that there are two times in his life where he felt his life was in jeopardy, connected to Shabbos. And in one case, keeping Shabbos saved his life. In the other circumstance, where he was forced to violate Shabbos, it also ultimately saved his life. So I just want to share this brief, a couple paragraphs in this beautiful article, and it reads as follows. During the show after the Neuwirth family had escaped to Holland, Rabbi Neuwirth's father suffered from severe pains and went to the local pharmacist to request medication. In addition, the father requested poison to kill the mice that visited his home in large numbers. That Shabbat, the father was supposed to take the medication for the first time. But after he smelled the medicine, he concluded that it must have had a bitter taste. And a split-second decision, in order to honor Shabbos, he didn't want to taste something bitter on Shabbos, he decided he didn't want to consume something with a bad taste and chose not to take the medication on Shabbat. Only after Shabbat did it become clear that the pharmacist had mixed up the packages. Instead of painkillers, that package was full of the poison against mice. So that's the first story. And the second reason, on account of a vow made by Rabbi Neuwirth himself after he broke Shabbat. Rabbi Neuwirth explained, I went through the Shoah with my parents, two brothers, and a sister in Holland, in a room where we lived for nearly 3 years, one room. There I had a Gemara of Tractate Ketubot and the third section of the Mishnah Berurah. We were forbidden to get close to the windows. There was nobody there besides us. The European winter cut our flesh. We didn't even dream about davening with a minyan. All that we had was Shabbat and the holy books that were with us. In 1946, we were released and arrived at the port near Marseille in France. It was Shabbat when they told the group of refugees I was with that there was a ship setting off for the land of Israel. They said that this ship was our only chance to get to the land of Israel. Since I did not know what was going on in the world, and there was good reason to think that this was a matter, once again, of life and death, I allowed myself to travel. On the way, I took upon myself that if Hashem would enable me to get to the land of Israel, I would write a sefer that would make great the honor of Shabbat. And because of these two stories in his life, it's what motivated Rav Neuwirth Zatzal to write his magnum opus, Shmir Shabbat K'Hilchata. With this as an introduction about these two stories related to Shabbos, we're going to take a little bit of a deep dive into the hashkafa of Shabbos, into some of the great machshava sfarim of the 19th and 20th centuries related to the sanctity of Shabbat. And that's what we're going to explore together this afternoon. L'chaim, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nivra. So you take a look at your sheets. We're going to start, of course, in last week's parsha. We read the Aseret Dibros last week. And of course, we know in the first set of the Dibrot, we're told, Zachor et Yom HaShabbat Kadsho, you shall remember the Sabbath day and sanctify it. 6 days you shall work and do all of your productive activity. And on the seventh day, it's a Sabbath to Hashem, lo ta'asech melacha. You shouldn't do any productive activity or work. Okay, you and everyone in your household. That's what it says in the Aseret Dibra. Now, fast forward a few parshiot, and in Kitisa, we know we have the tragic events of what? Of Chet HaEgel, where the Jewish people build communally an Avodah Zarah. Okay, just a few parshiot after they stood at Sinai, just a short while after they stood at Sinai and heard Hashem give us the Aseret Dibros, and then after the tragedy of Chet HaEgel, okay, and Moshe Rabbeinu has been begging HaKadosh Baruch Hu, give the Jewish people another chance. So what does Hashem say? What does Hashem tell Moshe to do? Vayakel Moshe kol dat bnei Yisrael vayomer alehem Moshe gathers together the entire Jewish people and he says to them, "Eila dvarim asher tziva Hashem la'aser otam." These are the things that Hashem has instructed us to do. So at this moment, what thing, if he's going to do chazarah of any of the Aseret Dibrot, which one of the Aseret Dibrot would you think he would do chazarah of? Would he review? The first one, I'm the Lord your God who took you out of Egypt, have no other gods before me. But no. What does the Torah tell us? What did Moshe instruct them? Sheshet yamim ta'aseh melacha, uv'yom asher yeh lechem kodesh, Shabbat Shabbaton l'Hashem, kol osav v'melacha yumat. No, they do chazara, what? About Shabbos, that 6 days you shall work, and the 7th day is the Shabbos. And then it says, Lo tivaru eish b'chol moshotechem. You shouldn't kindle any flame in any of your dwelling places on Shabbos. Okay? And then it says, V'yom Moshe kol adat b'nei Yisrael lemor, zash adavar asher tzivah Hashem lemor. And Moshe spoke to the entire community of Israel. These are the things that Hashem have instructed us and said unto us. So my question, I have a few questions. My first question is, why, there was a great book, Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan wrote a book called If You Were God. And basically in that beautiful sefer, he plans out a few different scenarios of if you were God and you were managing the world, what would you do in scenario X, Y, and Z? So if you were God and the Jewish people had just built a communal avodah zarah, which of the 10 commandments of the Aseret Dibrot would you want to review with them afterwards? I would think we would speak about what? Don't have any other gods before me. So what's the significance here? That at that moment, Hashem instructs Moshe to teach Am Yisrael not about avodah zarah, but about Shabbos. And what's the significance? That's the first question. My second question is, what does it mean that you should not kindle any flames in any of your dwelling places on Shabbat? Now we know there's a prohibition of actually sparking a fire. But is there more significance to that pasuk? And we're going to come back to that as well. And lastly, usually when Hashem gives instructions to Moshe to speak to the Jewish people, it's Daber el b'nei Yisrael. Speak to the children of Israel. But here the language that's used is, Vayomer Moshe el kol adat b'nei Yisrael. What's the word? Not just kol b'nei Yisrael, not even b'nei Yisrael. Kol adat b'nei Yisrael. The entire community of the children of Israel. So that word, those words, kol adat, and that word specifically adat, seems superfluous. And we're going to come back to that question as well. Okay. I promise we'll come back to all those questions. Now I want to learn together just a very short, famous Gemara in Masechet Shabbat. This is text number 3 on our sheets, okay? The Gemara in Masechet Shabbat says the following: Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai Ilmali Mishamim Yisrael Shtei Shabbatot K'Hilchatan Miyad Niga'alin. Okay, if only the Jewish people would keep 2 Shabbatot as we're meant to, they would immediately be redeemed. So what does that mean? Does it mean any 2 random Shabbatot? Does it mean 2 specific Shabbatot? Does it mean 2 Shabbatot in a row? What does it mean? And what does it mean that they're going to immediately be redeemed? What is redemption? Does that mean Mashiach? That if the Jewish people would all keep 2 Shabbatot and 2 Shabbatot simultaneously or in a row, does that mean we'll see Mashiach? So we have to understand what this Gemara is all about. And that, with these as our questions, we're now going to learn from a number of masters of Jewish thought, some more modern than others. I know this course is typically called Modern Masters, and we will hear from at least 2 modern masters as well as 2 older masters in this afternoon. So we're going to start first with one of our modern masters. The next 2 pieces, both 4 and 5, come from the Rabbi of Piasetzna, the Rabbi of the Warsaw Ghetto. And the first piece we're going to learn is from his most famous posthumous work, and that is the work Eish Kodesh. Eish Kodesh, of course, are the manuscripts of the Rebbe's Sichot and Drashot that he gave during the 3 years that he was in the last 3 years of his life when he was incarcerated in the Warsaw Ghetto. And he buried these transcripts of these various clandestine talks in milk cans, and they were found years after the war. So this is the first text we're going to learn. It's a short snippet from Eish Kodesh, a parsha of Vayakel, the parsha from the psukim that we just learned a few moments ago. And this is what he has to say about our Gemara. How do we understand the Gemara? That if the Jewish people keep 2 Shabbatot, they are immediately miyad would be redeemed. Okay, and he says this is talking about what are the 2 Shabbatot it's talking about? Shabbat Echad HaShabbat. The first Shabbos that's being referred to is Shabbos itself. The Jewish people would just keep Shabbos. That's one Shabbos. But there's another aspect of Shabbos. What's the second Shabbos? Bet in the second Shabbos, HaShabbat should be me'achol. Oh, so that's what the Rabbi says here. There's Shabbos itself, and then there's the Shabbos that comes into our week, right? What's the idea of why we light it? One of the ideas of why we light a Havdalah candle, okay, is to take the light of Shabbos, okay, into the week. Many people have a custom, like we do in our house, of taking that Havdalah candle and lighting 2 candles from Malava Malka. And that the idea behind that mystically is that you're bringing the light of Shabbos into the week. So the Rabbi says the same thing here. He says, Va'bet HaShabbat, the second Shabbos that the Gemara is speaking about is the Shabbos that we bring into the days of the week. Shanim Shachlan Kedushat Shabbat. That we bring and we extend the sanctity of Shabbos, some aspect of the sanctity of Shabbos, into our week. 6 days you shall do work, okay, as Pasuk says, and on the 7th day should be a Sabbath unto Hashem. Okay, and he says both of these Shabbatot, as mentioned by the Psukim, we have to fulfill both of these ideas. Mimnei shegam b'shishi me'achol timshechu hakdusha. Now, what are we meant to do? That even though we are allowed to do melacha during the days of the week, we have to bring some of the kedusha of Shabbat. So, what exactly does it mean to bring the kedusha of Shabbos into our week? And that says the Rebbe, if we're able to do that, if we're able to experience Shabbos itself, and then bring some aspect of Shabbos into our week, then we, so to speak, redeem our week. That's the geula. We're bringing a semblance of redemption, of geula, of spirituality and ruchnius that otherwise would be absent from our week. Okay, so that's what the Rebbe says in Eish Kodesh. Now, before the Rebbe ended up in the Warsaw Ghetto, of course, in his lifetime, his most famous work was called Chovat Talmidim, which means a student's obligation, and it was a workbook, a spiritual workbook for young men, for bar mitzvah age young men. And in Chovat Talmidim, which is text number 5 on our sheets, the Rebbe said the following words: "The Esher ze ramez ilmali mishamri misrael bet Shabbatok yochatam yan nigalin." So he says, what's the idea that's being communicated by our Gemara that we spoke about? Imlo hargashat mimeachol kedusha mina Shabbat shavra ki miata haita shamor od Shabbat yochato. Oh, what does the Rabbi say? The Gemara is teaching us something beautiful. If a Jew doesn't feel during the week that follows a Shabbos, doesn't feel a continuation of that sense of kedusha, of spirituality, of feeling close to Hashem, if that feeling doesn't carry over into their week, so what are we supposed to do? He says, well, at the end of that week we have another Shabbos, so we keep Shabbos again. And if that becomes our pattern, if every single week we keep keeping Shabbos, so eventually what? Our relationship to the rest of the week is going to change also, because Shabbos is a constant presence in our lives. Okay, and so he says, if we keep that Shabbos, even though last week we weren't as inspired, but by keeping another Shabbos after that, then hopefully what's going to happen, we're going to bring a little bit more kedusha into our week. And you'll find yourself, okay, already being surrounded by the treasure of holiness. Until we also merit to feel redeemed and to experience redemption. So says the Piyah, sets the Rebbe in these 2 beautiful pieces, that our Gemara is talking about what? Bringing Shabbos into the rest of our week. The enlightened spirituality that we feel, the sense of feeling Hashem's presence that we might not feel all week long when during the hustle bustle. We have to find some moments during the week where we're involved in all the productive activity to also have a little bit of Shabbos during the week. By the way, that's one of the reasons why, when we say the Shir Shal Yom every day, we say Hayom Yom Sheni B'Shabbat, Hayom Yom Shlishi B'Shabbat. It's the entire work week, okay, is first of all, whatever spirituality and spiritual energy we bring into our work week, that all comes from the Shabbat before. And the entire work week, we're also looking forward to what? The next Shabbos. So Shabbos is a fundamental part of what it means spiritually to be a Jew, and we have to find some way to bring that spiritual energy into the week as well. Okay. That's the PSX and the Rebbe. We're now going to hear from the Bat Ayin. Okay, the Bat Ayin, of course, is Avram Dov Ber Avrech Zecher Tzad Kosh Vracha Schusa Yagen Elenu. He lived in the late 18th century into the mid 19th century. He actually came in Aliyah to Tzfat at the age of 65 in 1831, and he lived in Tzfat for, I guess, another 9 years after that, until 1840. He's buried in the cemetery in Tzfat, and he says his beautiful sefer is called Sefer Bat Ayin, and the Bat Ayin says the following: U'azeh Ramzu Chazal Ilmale Shamar Yisrael Shtei Shabbaton Kiroi Miyad Niga'alein. This is what is alluded to in our Gemara when our Chazal say if we only keep 2 Shabbat like we're meant to keep Shabbat, we'll immediately experience redemption. What does that Gemara mean? Perush Bechinat Shabbat b'machshava. What are the 2 Shabbatot? There's the idea of Shabbos in Jewish thought, b'machshava, in terms of the way we relate to Hashem intellectually and spiritually. And also, there's the idea of Shabbos in Dibor, the way we speak. Shehei Kedusha v'Torah Karoi. That our speech has to be what? Full of holiness and purity. He says on Shabbos it's very easy to be in that headspace. What? Of feeling close to God intellectually, spiritually, and even the way we speak on Shabbos. Everyone's you're sitting at the Shabbos table, so usually it's a lot of conversation about family. They're divrei Torah. We sing Zmiros. The things that the way we use our words on Shabbos are very anchored in Kedusha. So the Bat Ayin says when we're talking about if only Jewish people will keep 2 Shabbatot, it's not only talking about experiencing those ideas on Shabbos itself, but what? Making those things that are so obvious on Shabbos and so much a part of our being on Shabbos, making them a part of our mahut, our existence all the time, not just on Shabbos. If we're able to do that, he says, then we'll be worthy to be redeemed. And may it be Hashem's will. Okay. So that's the Bat Ayin. The Bat Ayin's Rabbi, okay, the Morei Naim, Rabbi Nachum of Chernobyl, he takes us a little bit further, a little bit different direction. And this is text number 7 on our sheets. The Morei Naim, the great Rabbi of Chernobyl. V'zeu ilu shamru Yisrael shtei Shabbatot hein shtei habechinot shetzarich la'avod Hashem. He says there are 2. What are the 2 Shabbatot that our Chazal are talking about? There are 2 ideas, 2 aspects that a Jew needs to have in their avodas Hashem. Okay, lishmor bechinat haShabbat b'shesh yimei achol sheyisayeu livnot bechinat melechet haMishkan kamor. He says the first idea is what? That we have to keep some aspect related to how the Torah teaches about Shabbos during the days of the week. Okay, and what does that mean? That when the Torah permitted us to do malacha during the days of the week, it was talking not only in terms of earning a livelihood, but it was specifically speaking about what? The melechet hamishkan, building and running the Mishkan. Okay, and therefore, even though we don't have Beis Hamikdash, we don't have the Mishkan, we can't just say, oh, we don't have that, so therefore we don't have to worry or think about or learn about those things. No, says the Chernobyl Rabbi, the first idea we have to recognize about Shabbos, and that's to be part of our existence to bring us closer to Geula, is what? we can't forget about how to run that enterprise. We have to learn about the Mishkan. We have to learn about the Beis Hamikdash. We have to know the halachos. We have to know about the how Kohanim have to know how to do the avoda. Okay, and sadly, do we really learn this material in depth? No. For the past many centuries, only Yichidei Skula, only a few have delved in depth in terms of the halachos related to the karbanos, to all the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash, towards even how we're going to build the kelim. And now, Baruch Hashem, today we have the Temple Institute, Machon HaMikdash in the Old City, that is giving us the opportunity to see some of the kelim actually being built to halachic standards. But for many centuries, that didn't exist. It was quite ignored. And what the Chernobyl are saying is that the first step of getting us closer to Geula, the first aspect of Shabbos of getting us closer to Geula, is recognizing that when the Torah gives us the psukim, okay, explaining how 6 days of the week we're going to do malacha, and the seventh day is going to be Shabbat, it's understanding what that context of malacha is. It's not solely earning our parnasa. It's talking about the capacity, to build the enterprise of the Mishkan, the Beis Hamikdash, and to be involved in holy work, in sacred work. And therefore, we have to condition ourselves that even in the absence of that enterprise of the Beis Hamikdash, we still have to be looking ahead to when we'll be able to have the merit to build that enterprise. We have to be prepared, and we have to prepare ourselves, and therefore be engaged in limud of these sacred things. That's the first idea. And the second idea, okay, the second aspect is what? The sanctity of Shabbos itself, okay? And if we're able to do both these things, to really appreciate Shabbos, and not just Shabbos, not only be a day to go to, into the post-cholent coma all day long, but to really appreciate what Shabbos is really meant to be, and the holiness and the sanctity of this day. If we are able to have that on one hand, and then on the other hand, says the Rabbi of Chernobyl, appreciate what we're meant to do during the 6 days where it's permissible to do work, and that work is not just earning a parnasa, but it's being engaged in building the sacred enterprise, okay, so we should be able to see a return to that avoda. Then those two things together, okay, in consonance, are going to be the catalyst to bringing us closer to that redemption. And that's how the Rebbe of Chernobyl understands our Gemara. Okay. I now want to get back to our questions that we began with in the Pesukim of Vayakel. What does it mean that after the great tragedy of Chet HaEgel, that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he gathers the Jewish people together, Hashem instructs him not to what? To review the laws of against idolatry, but what? To review the laws of Shabbos. And the Slonimer Rebbe, the Netivot Shalom, of course, is one of our modern masters we've learned from many times together. He, of course, died in the year 2000, so he's pretty much a pretty contemporary modern master. He says the following. This is text number 8 on our sheets, okay? And he says the following. Ulefichach ka'asher yirein Moshe min ha'ar mimacharat Yom HaKippurim shebo nipayes HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael achet ha'egel. When does Moshe come down after he's been up on Har Sinai after 40 days? He comes down after Yom Kippur. And he spent that entire Yom Kippur asking Hashem what? To forgive, it's Yom Kippur, to forgive the Jewish people for the grave transgression of the Chet HaEgel, of the transgression of the golden calf. He asked Hashem to restore them to the level they were at before they lost it through their transgression. Lashiv lahem adat, and return to them what? What's dat? The awareness of Hashem in their lives, of feeling Hashem's presence in their lives. V'natan lahem reishi kol Shabbat, and therefore, says the Slonimer Rebbe, that's why the first thing they do, okay, that Hashem instructs Moshe, is to what? Remind them about what Shabbos is all about. Hamashpia dat b'klal Yisrael, because Shabbat is the opportunity every single week where we are bestowed with that spiritual clarity. Okay, we take a step back from everything else we're involved with all week long. Okay, that can distract us, and we have a day that's kulo ruchniut. It's all about spirituality. It's all about seeing the Yad Hashem, seeing Hashem's presence in our families, seeing Hashem's presence through the davening and the singing we do, seeing Hashem's presence by inviting guests into our home and seeing the spark of the divine in others. It's all about restoration of that, of restoring that spiritual hard drive to recognize and see the Yad Hashem in everything. Okay? And if we're able to do that, because Shabbos is called, says the Rabbi, ki oti, it's a sign, to remind you, so that you should know and internalize that what? That I'm the Lord your God who made you holy. And Shabbat brings redemption, salvation to the world. Because all of redemption is dependent upon what? The capacity for a Jew to experience that spiritual wisdom and clarity. L'dat et Hashem, to know and recognize and feel Hashem's presence. Shezeu sod ha'geula, and this is the secret to our redemption. Umla'ach ha'aretz de'at Hashem, that the entire world should be full of the knowledge of what? Of God, the awareness of God. V'zu skulat Shabbat, and this is the unique capacity of Shabbos. L'dat ki ani Hashem mikashchem, to know and intuit and internalize that it's Hashem who has made us holy. V'zed nirmaz b'katuv vayakel Moshe ekol adat b'nei Yisrael. Look what the son of a Rabbi does in this last line. He says this is all alluded to in the opening pasuk of Parashat Vayakel. Okay, when it says that Moshe should gather kol adat b'nei Yisrael, because the word adat, otiot dat, the word adat is the same letters as the word dat. Sheishivet adat l'klal Yisrael, that the idea of bringing the Jewish people together and reviewing the laws of Shabbos is to remind them that through Shabbos there'll be a restoration of an awareness of God. So Shabbos is an opportunity for us to take a step back and have the opportunity to restore and clarify that essential idea of the awareness of God and feeling Hashem's presence in every moment. And that's what Shabbos is really all about. So, as I said, I alluded to kind of jokingly a few minutes ago, Shabbos is so much more than a day of rest and going to sleep. It's a day of restoration, of restoring that spiritual clarity. So I want to close by answering the last of our three opening questions. And that's the question of why does the Torah use the expression lo tivaru eish b'chol moshvotechem b'yom Shabbat? What's the significance of not kindling a fire? Now we know there's a prohibition, an actual prohibition of lighting an actual fire, but the great Kabbalist, the Shalach Kadosh, okay, he takes this idea a step further. He sees that there's a very important spiritual yesod, fundamental, that's being communicated through this verse. This is what the Shalach Kadosh says. He says Shabbos is a day of. We don't have that. Right? What? No, I'm just reading it outside. Okay, because I saw it this morning. Okay, Shabbat hu yom menucha v'sha'ato she'al pnuya la'asok b'inyanei kihila. Okay, Shabbos is, yes, it's a day of rest, but more than that, it's an opportunity where it's a day of togetherness. Okay, community gets together, we see each other, we're able to speak with one another. And therefore, he says, L'fichach mazir akatu. And that's why the verse warns us, Lo tivaru eish b'chol moshvotechem b'yom Shabbat. You should not kindle any flames in any of your dwelling places on the Sabbath day. Listen to his words. Al taviru esha machloket b'yom zeh. You should not kindle the flames of controversy and disunity on this day. Lo l'shem kach nitna Shabbat. This is not why Shabbos was given to us. Amnan Shabbat hu yom menucha. It's true, Shabbos is a day of rest. Aval gam yom Yom Shel Kedusha, but it's also a day of sanctity. Rabbi, we learned together some very, very beautiful ideas that all stem from this Gemara and Masechet Shabbat. If only the Jewish people would experience to keep two Shabbatot as we're meant to, we'd immediately experience redemption. We learned from the Hasidic masters that perhaps it's talking about the spirituality, the awareness, the feeling of God's presence that we experience on Shabbos, and we have to somehow try to bring that into our entire week, not just on Shabbos itself. But the Shalach Kadosh takes it a step further. He says, what? That the secret to our redemption is what? Is unity, is Achdus. And on Shabbos, we have the greatest opportunity to feel that sense of community, of coming together. We have to work, just as the Hasidic Master said, we have to work to bring the ruchnius and the awareness of God into our week. May we hear it so, may we be blessed also to bring the spirit of Achdus that we can feel on Shabbos into the rest of our week. And may we be zocheh to together, through that Achdus, to greet Mashiach Tzidkenu. Have a great week.